Hello everyone, how's your day? Hope it's going great. Today we're going to be talking about the arc thrower, one of my most favorite support weapons. I've been using the arc thrower ever since I unlocked it, and I'm still currently using it because I enjoy it that much. And I know the arc thrower has been the subject of many people's both hate and joy. And it is with this video that I am looking to provide a guide on how to use the arc thrower, as well as also shed some light on what I believe to be the behavior of the arc projectile in the game, because I think being able to understand the way the lightning works here will also make using things that utilize the lightning, such as the arc thrower, a lot more enjoyable. When I was doing a video a while ago about the Tesla Tower, I was stumped by the number of inconsistencies and oddities surrounding the arc lightning that was fired from it. But by being able to use the arc thrower and sort of influence the way the lightning is directed to targets, I was able to make a lot of observations, and I've written them all down here, and I'm looking to hopefully attempt to sort out the general confusion that exists around the arc lightning behavior. Before I start, I want to say that the purpose of this video is not to claim that this weapon is OP or absolute trash. I'm just hoping to give as much detailed information about the arc thrower as possible, in the hopes that it will be able to help all of you make a better informed decision on what to expect when you bring it with you in your games. Another quick disclaimer I want to give is that everything I will be presenting in this video are all things that I have observed. I will of course provide what evidence I have so I don't make any baseless claims, but I am not confident enough to say that I truly know that the way the arc thrower and the way the arc lightning works. This is all based on what I've seen and based on what I've consistently witnessed that I feel like gives it enough to make it an argument for. Also, another quick disclaimer, there are a lot of flashing lights and clips of the arc thrower being used, so I wanted to point that out just in case anyone here finds the flashing lights to be unpleasant and it may affect your viewing experience. With that out of the way, I also want to give just a quick rundown of what we'll be discussing in this video so you all know what to expect. We'll start with the basics, which is just a general description of the arc thrower and its uses. Next, we'll talk about the arc lightning behavior, which I feel like this can be a video on its own, but I also feel that understanding the arc thrower is in part understanding the projectile that it fires, so it makes more sense to group these things together in one discussion. After that, it's gameplay and use cases. And I talk about my experience using the arc thrower, using it in both the bot and the bug planet, so I break it down and I saw how it performed, where it performed well, and where it underperformed. Moving on to the tips, the tricks, and the oddities. This is me just explaining some unique things or two that I learned about using the arc thrower, as well as highlighting the inconsistent behavior about it. Lastly, we're going to wrap it up with just my overall thoughts, my 2 cents on the arc thrower, and what my hopes about the weapon are. Now that all the introductions out of the way, I'd like to welcome you aboard the Light of Justice. I could not find a better ship name better suited for something about lightning, so this is what we have. I like to begin these breakdowns with the ship's description of the thing that I'm looking into, as most of our first experience with these support stratagems are from reading it right here. So, the game describes the arc thrower as a weapon that projects an arc of lightning in close range. It charges up to project bolts and may discharge through multiple targets. As far as the ship description goes, this is pretty fair. Some other basic things to note about the arc thrower is that it has an effective range of 35 meters. It does not use ammo, effectively being a weapon with infinite ammo. It requires a 1-second charge of time to fire, and it can stagger enemies. It also auto-locks on enemies, so meaning you do not need to aim very precisely, you just need to aim at that general direction. When the arc lightning strikes an enemy, it will almost always strike them at their center, making your position influence the direction of the lightning very important. Arc lightning will target a lot of things such as dead bodies, hell pods, sentries, samples, and even the terrain. When the arc lightning changes, it's great for clearing out clumps of enemies, but be warned that the lightning does not distinguish friend from foe, so you can easily kill your teammates. Arc lightning is also very strong, so unless your teammates have the armor that gives them a 50% chance of surviving a lethal hit, or any of the arc resistant armor, they will most likely get one-shotted by the arc thrower. When charging the weapon, there is both the visual and audio cue to indicate when the arc thrower is fully charged and ready to fire. The visual can either be gauged by the spark at the end of the weapon, which happens when the weapon is fully charged, or by the placement of your crosshair lines. The audio cue is also loud and distinct enough to let you know when it is to be ready to be fired. I found the visual indicator for a full charge to be more than enough, which is why I advise not aiming in first person, as the size of the weapon not only blocks a majority of your screen, but you do not have the third person crosshair to help indicate a charge. When a weapon is fully charged, there is no way, from what I've seen, to cancel your charge. The best thing you do is just maybe aim it away from your teammates and just let the weapon fire. Unlike the railgun, there is no penalty for keeping your weapon charged, so it will not blow up in your face if you keep holding it on long. It also does not provide any benefit, as the damage of the arc thrower does not increase the longer you hold the charge. Lastly, lightning does not seem to consider armor when damaging enemies, but headshot multipliers do seem to apply, making it a priority to still hit enemies where it counts. Moving away from the basics, we now get into the arc of lightning. The projectiles in this game are very simple to see and understand. Bullets make impact and do damage. Fire burns and does damage over time. Lightning has its own unique properties, so let's do our best to try and understand them. I feel like this section is better communicated with a visual, so I've created some drawings here to better convey my points. First, let's start with a very simple scenario. You, the arc thrower holder, is indicated by this arc thrower icon. The terminated scavengers you see here are just placeholders for enemies, and the Helldiver helmets are your teammates. From what I observed, the auto-targeting feature of the arc thrower searches for enemies in a cone-like manner, originating from the barrel of the arc thrower and directing towards where your screen is facing. As you can see with this visual and with the cone visualized, upon firing, the weapon will always strike the closest target it will lock onto. After that, it will then chain towards enemies that are behind it. All of my time testing it, I've never seen the chain for the lightning arc backwards towards me. And if enemies are behind the initial target, again, the lightning will chain behind towards them. From what I've seen and from what I've heard, this is the general consensus and idea that most people have about the arc thrower and the arc lightning. A couple of things here. The arc lightning, when it hits the initial target, can chain up to 2 additional targets for a maximum of 3 targets. If you happen to have the circuit expansion chip upgrade, the lightning will be able to chain to 1 more additional enemy, allowing for a maximum of 4 targets. Quickly referring back to the game's description of the arc thrower, it states that the bolts may discharge through multiple targets. I believe there is some RNG in deciding whether to chain from your first to your second target, the second to your third target, and even your third to your fourth target will chain together. I believe the percentage for a successful chain decreases with each subsequent target, meaning that you will almost always get that first chain, but you may not always get that last one. I've tested this using, thankfully, the factory strider because after some time it will neatly deploy 4 units in single file, and after numerous tries I have not been able to consistently kill all 4 units at once. I've also been in firefights where enemies are very clumped up together in front of the other, but the chain would stop at the second target. The second thing I want to point out here, going into the arc lightning behavior, is that even though the arc lightning will always aim for the target center, there are multiple angles that the lightning can enter the center. I believe that the lightning chain is dependent on where the lightning actually hits the target. For example, the lightning can either hit your target head on like this, or at an angle like this. If you were to hit it like this, another quote-unquote cone would be scanned to locate another target. Despite, in this example, your teammate and another target are present in this second cone of targeting, the arc lightning, even the chain, still seem to follow the rule of only going to your next closest target. So even though your teammate is in that cone, they should never be attacked. A percentage is calculated, and if the RNG passes, the arc lightning will chain to that second target, and upon impact, that target will then generate another cone behind the point of impact. Again, if the arc lightning was to strike the initial's target center but at a different angle, it could look like this, and from beyond that target another cone is generated to locate any other targets. Even though multiple targets are arguably within range, it will always do the dice roll on the next closest thing. If the roll passes, the lightning will arc to that target, again generating another targeting cone behind it to find the next available target. Unfortunately, in this example here, the target is our teammate, and he may have to be reinforced at the end of this example. Yet, as it continues, as beyond our teammate, another cone will generate, and if there is a target behind them, there could be something to chain towards that next thing. One last example about the chaining behavior is this, where given the point of initial contact with the primary target, the path of the lightning can be predictable but also seem to curve. If the lightning was to approach it from this angle, we see the same behavior, where a cone forms, a closest target is identified, a dice is rolled, if it passes, it hits, another cone forms, and the process repeats until the end. We've also been kind of looking at these examples from a top-down view, but this is a third-person shooter, so we also need to be aware of the 3D space, which brings me to this next visual where we kind of highlight that the cone will also search for targets both above and below. In this example, after making initial contact, the game will then see if there are any available targets. Same as always. If a tall target is present, such as the Bow Titan, then it can arc towards them, upwards. It's the same if you were to reverse the order and the Bow Titan is first. The cone will appear behind the initial target and give him the spot of initial contact. Because the Bow Titan is so high, there's actually a lot of range to search from. Still, if a unit is found, it will follow that same process and it will arc towards them. So the next set of visuals here is to highlight that the proximity of enemies don't really mean anything. It's all about what is behind them and where is the lightning hitting them from. In this example, you are above a group of enemies. You fire straight down at the first one, and then a cone, will appear beyond that initial point of contact and will search for anything there, but it will not find anything, leading you to only get 1 kill for that 1 shot. If you were to fire at an angle, say at that second unit, given that it's not direct top-down shot, the cone can still find something within its targeting and arc to that. Also, beyond just the chain itself, the way that the arc thrower fires is again in a cone, so you may not always need direct line of sight to your enemy. If the lightning is able to find something within the cone, it could still lock onto it. Though the leeway for it is not as forgiving as you may think, so it's still a good idea to very much aim at the thing you're trying to hit. So that was a lot, but let's quickly recap everything there, which is that first, multiple lightning chains are never guaranteed. If you were to fire your arc lightning in slow-mo, you can see that the lightning all does not immediately generate at the time that your target is first hit. Each chain appears shortly after the other, meaning that the game is trying to see if, 1, a target exists, 2, which is the closest target, And 3, did it pass to check the chain? Next, the arc lightning chain kind of follows that whole I hit you here, I generate a cone this way, and I follow that same process. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but that's pretty much the meat of everything about what I know about the arc lightning. If you do have additional questions, I'm more than happy to answer them in the comments, but that's pretty much all I wanted to say about it for this video. Next, we're going to move on to some gameplay, and I will say that the arc thrower is, in short, incredibly strong. I'll start with the bugs. It can one-shot all of the small bugs. It can two-shot hive guards, brute commanders, bowel spewers, nursing spewers, and warrior bugs. For the heavies, you can take out a stalker in like 3 to 4 shots. You can take out chargers in 7 to 8. And although I wouldn't recommend it, you can kill a bile titan with it, though it will take you a lot of shots to kill it. With 35 meters of range, you can engage from so far, and if enemies spawn next to you in bug breaches, they're always grouped up, so you will definitely have a lot of opportunities for some easy multi-kills. A common issue I encounter is that with multiple bugs jumping at you, and with a 1-second charge time in between shots, it would be hard to net a chain lightning on multiple enemies when they're all surrounding you. In these moments, it would be best to switch to a primary or secondary to clear your way. Another is that with bug planets having a lot of close combat situations, bugs will always be next to you just as much as they are to your teammates, making it hard to make in-the-moment calculations of where your arc lightning will go and risking the life of one of your teammates. For bots, it's kind of the other way around, you know, they won't be always on top of you, and you can always pretty much engage them at range. The downside to that is that they can also still engage you at range, and with things like aim punch that can really throw off your arc thrower shot, and rockets that can send you into a ragdoll, you might find it hard to even get a full shot out. If you're still able to make it through that though, the arc thrower is still a very strong choice. You're able to clear out tons of bot troopers in just one shot. You can take out lines of berserkers, fight devastators, hulks, and you can even take out the tanks and the cannon turrets. Something I want to highlight about the arc thrower that makes it very effective in both factions is the stagger. In a recent patch, they did nerf the range of the arc thrower from 15 meters to 35, but they increased the weapon's stagger, and stagger is very strong in this game. I want to go out there and just say that the only reason David beat Goliath was because he staggered him first. With stagger, your arc thrower can interrupt enemies, even if they survive the first shot, and you can effectively pretty much stun lock them to death. I've cancelled numerous bug breach calls by the warriors or the hive guards or the brute commanders by staggering them. I've also seen the stagger apply to all enemies hit by the lightning, from first target all the way to the last chain one, so you can prevent stalkers from approaching you, rocket devastators from priming their barrage of rockets, and more. Chargers don't seem to be affected, and bile titans can't be stunned by anything anymore. It also used to be really consistent with hulks, but the most recent update kind of made the force needed to stagger the hulk a lot more higher, so you can't really stun lock a hulk anymore. But you can still kill hulks quite easily though. It takes maybe like 6 to 8 shots, which with a weapon of infinite ammo is not a bad trade-off. The arc thrower is very strong against both factions, and what's very neat about it is you can adopt different playstyle towards each one. Against bugs, you can take to the high ground where the bugs can't easily reach you, and against bots, you need to take advantage of the cover in between your shots because that's when you're vulnerable. That's it for gameplay, and now onto some of this weapon's quirks and features. Let's start with some interactions with your other stratagems. Similar to the Tesla Tower, the arc thrower will, if it's the closest thing to target, fire at your hell pods and your sentries. And hell pods are, again, a quick reminder what your weapon comes in on, as well as those resupply pods. It will target to it, it will chain to it, but it will not damage it and will not chain from it. So referring to this visual, where my arc thrower will target this enemy, you can see that there is a sentry behind it. But behind that sentry is my teammate. I've never seen arc lightning chain from a sentry, so I'm confident enough to say that I will still take the shot, knowing that if my teammate is behind my sentry, they will not be harmed by the lightning, despite being in 1, the cone's range, and 2, that there's still targets for it to chain to. The only stratagems that can take your arc thrower and chain the lightning and even get affected by it are the AR guard dog, so not the rover, the ballistic shield, and the Patriot exosuit. It will destroy the exosuit, and it can also even destroy the ballistic shield. And if the guard dog is deployed, meaning it's out in the air, it will get damaged, but it can still repair itself. The guard dog is invulnerable when it's in its backpack, but you can still arc towards it and arc from it. So another thing about the arc thrower is that even though it doesn't have as much range as it used to, anything within 35 meters can still be used to project that lightning bolt even further, such as the guard dog or anything else out there. Most of the time, this will just be an enemy's corpse. Since you don't want your arc lighting to hit a dead body most of the time, and since dead bodies are normally on the floor, you kind of want to just maybe shift your aim a little higher so you're targeting the people who are still walking around or the bugs still crawling. Aside from where you are simply pointing the weapon at, it's also very important to know where your position is in respect to your targets. And beyond just trying to chain the best lightning arc, you still want to maybe go for headshots because, like I said earlier, the damage from your lightning still has the headshot multiplier. I find this most useful for charges because If you were to shoot them at the side compared to the head, you may take twice or even 2.5 times long as if you were to shoot them straight at their head. If you were to shoot them at the side, you can still strip off their armor or even strip off their leg armor, which is a weak spot, and you can go from there, but most of the time you can easily kill it within 6 to 8 shots, only getting headshots. Your arc thrower is also, believe it or not, able to destroy a factory strider. It will take a long time, but you can strip it bit by bit, starting with the Gatling guns at the front, the cannon at the top. You can even take out the top of the head or any of those things on its back, and you'll win that fight, but it'll be like a 20-30 minute fight, so I don't know if it's worth your time. I also mentioned how once your arc thrower is fully charged, there's no way to uncharge it. It needs to fire, and there's an easier way to work around that, so just point your gun somewhere where no teammate are and just shoot it. However, things can cause you to shoot your weapon involuntarily, such as maybe switching from your support weapon to your primary or to your secondary. It can go off by you mantling or you getting knocked into a ragdoll, so just be wary of that. Also, though I wouldn't really recommend first person, keep in mind that the lightning is fired from the end of your weapon. And in third person, when you are sort of up against a wall or behind cover, you will tuck in your gun and kind of have it point downwards. However, your view looks different while in first person, allowing you to, in a way, shoot over cover with a large part of your body hidden from sight. Also, if the cover you're next to is thin enough, you can still have the end of your gun sort of clip through it and still fire without it being stopped too early by the cover. Next, I want to mention how that 1 second of charge time in between shots can still be maximized for your benefit. I also want to start this by reiterating the point that the charge sound is very loud, and there are numerous times I found myself tunnel visioning on a group of enemies where a Ball Spewer with Ninja Pro will come up next to me and just hurl on me and I die. So every now and then, after I fire a couple shots, I like to maybe just take a quick glance around my area, assess my surroundings before either committing to fire to this group or just fleeing. And that's another thing I want to mention. You should always be light on your feet when using the arc thrower. Since it auto locks, your exact precision for aiming is not required. So if you were to fight bots, you can use that 1 second of charging time, that downtime, to kind of just jiggle peek. Only fire when you're ready. You can also continuously strafe in open areas, and you can constantly dive away from bugs or dive away from chargers while still charging and shooting. Because of this, I don't recommend taking that armor that reduces your weapon sway, and since charging your weapon pretty much slows you to a crawl, I also like to take the jump pack to help reposition myself. It can help me get out of sticky situations when I'm too slow to escape out of or when I realize too late. The only other backpack I could recommend would be the shield backpack because it can take a rocket hit from a devastator and still you can shoot your arc thrower without being interrupted. In terms of your primary and your secondary, I like to always treat the arc thrower as if it is my primary and like to use my primary for the eruptor to take out objectives or a shotgun for dealing with enemies at close range. Same thing with my secondary. Talking about the whole close range and compensating for its weaknesses kind of segues into my next point, which is that the arc thrower is really bad at close range. And this is a well-known issue about the arc thrower, but it's not one that's well understood. There are a lot of people who I've seen refer to it simply as a misfire. And you can see from a lot of the clips I've been showing here that there are times when the arc thrower just will charge and I will fire it, but nothing comes out. I've observed this with a Tesla tower as well, and I see the same happen with the arc thrower. And as to why this happens, that's yet to be determined. Whether it's something such as a terrain, an obstacle, a large amount of targets, the absence of any targets, whether there's something alive or dead, I just can't say. All I know is that it happens way too often, even consecutively at times, and that the devs have acknowledged it and they're currently working on a solution for it. If it was to happen, I either switch to your primary or your secondary, or just reposition your aim or fire at a different angle to try and make the lightning work again. It is single-handedly due to this whole misfire thing do I recommend bringing a primary or secondary to help you deal with close range targets. Because if only you knew how many times a group of hunters jumped on me only for my weapon to just spark the thin air and do nothing. I want to go on and say that the misfire thing is the biggest issue about the arc thrower. Yes, it can kill teammates. Yes, it might not arc to the thing I wanted to, but there are consistent and predictable ways to work around that. You cannot say the same about this whole misfire thing. Also, I just want to take a quick mention just about the different changes the arc thrower has been through. I've heard that you can use the arc thrower to break a storage container and get the loot from within it. I've tried it, but I have not been able to break anything, so I want to say that no longer can do that. I've also heard claims that you can easily kill a Bow Titan with it. They would say that the Bow Titan has multiple contact points, and if you were to elevate yourself correctly, you can have the lightning chain and hit all those contact points, hitting it multiple times with one shot, therefore killing it very fast. I'm not sure if I was doing it wrong, but I have not been able to replicate this, so I'm just gonna say that you can't do it. Lastly, even though the range was nerfed from 50 meters to 35 meters, it's still very far. I highly recommend using the ping to see how far something is before you shoot it, or to know when to let go of your charge the moment you enter that range. Another thing is that in terms of what the cone is in terms of distance, I've never really seen the chain hit directly to the side of an enemy. It's always sort of behind them. So I'll just say maybe 45 degrees from that point of contact going outwards, and that's the width of the cone. And then the last thing before moving on to my conclusion is that I don't think you can destroy side objectives with it. Take it from someone who has tried to shoot down the illegal broadcast using it, and also the spore of a shrieker nest. There's an interesting thing where your shot can arc off of the shrieker nest into an enemy below, but I've never been able to destroy it, and even if you were able to destroy it, I think it takes way too long, so I just recommend not trying and using something else to do it. Overall, I like the arc thrower, and I think the arc weapons are great in general. To be honest, I think it's giving the devs a lot of headaches. The arc weapon seems to be very inconsistent with their firing, and even though I haven't done a video about the Blitzer yet, I know from my experience about the arc thrower and the Tesla tower that if it were to be the same way, I wouldn't be surprised. It was even the cause of constant game crashes for a period of time. The devs were saying actively not to use until it was resolved. I also feel that a majority of people's first impressions of the arc weapons were either them getting team killed or then team killing someone else, so overall just very negative to begin with. I think the arc weapons such as the arc thrower have a high skill ceiling where it's easy to pick up, hard to master. I mean, the gun even has an auto lock feature. You can just literally point, charge, and shoot. The mastery in it comes from your knowledge of how to influence the path of the lightning, as well as your positioning and respect to your enemies. I generally feel that if the misfire thing was to be resolved and no longer here, the arc thrower would be the best weapon in the game, hands down. Also, considering everything about the arc thrower and how strong it is, this has always been what idea of just a single person using it. If you can imagine a whole team using the arc resistant armor, just using this, everything will go down so fast. Nothing is safe. But that's it for the video. Big thanks to, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, Cathode62524 for suggesting this video. I have a lot of videos planned for this channel, but if there's something you guys want to see specifically, be sure to comment and let me know. I love reading your guys' comments and replying to your experiences and opinions, so I'm very excited to see what you all have to think about the arc thrower as well. So if you like what you see or like what you heard, be sure to like and subscribe. I'm almost at 1,000 subs, and I'm super excited to be nearing that milestone, and have been super grateful of all the support so far. So again, thanks for checking out my video. I'm just finally glad to be purging my drive of almost a terabyte of arc thrower footage, and have a nice day.
Victory was never in doubt.